Hello again and welcome back. Thanks for watching. So this week I'm going to get into the national statistics. They just got released today, so we have some exciting new numbers there. But first, I want to start off with a couple of news stories. First one being this guy from a small place called Wainfleet. Let's check this out. Okay, so this video is over 7 minutes long. I'm just going to get to the most important parts and give my quick take on it. This guy's got over $100,000 in fines because he bought a house and used it as a short-term rental, and the city or the town ended up fining him because they introduced a new bylaw. So let's listen to what he has to say here.
Hello, I'm Scott Wilson. My family and I recently relocated to our lake house in Wainfleet, a property we previously used as a cottage. My wife and I have worked diligently throughout our entire lives to purchase this home, and now the city is attempting to seize it from us. This situation is almost beyond belief. When I share our story, people often respond with disbelief, saying, "This can't happen in Canada," but it is happening right here in Wainfleet, Ontario.
So I will say this guy must do presentations for a living because he has the green screen, he has the microphone, he has the presentation all put together, and he seems to know what he's doing on camera. But anyway, let's move on to the important parts of this video.
3 years ago, we purchased our lake house as a cottage. Like Ontario's Premier, the Honourable Doug Ford, we occasionally rented our cottage property when we weren't using it. Interestingly, Premier Ford's own lake house is listed on Airbnb for around $750 per night. However,
damn, I might have to go rent that place out, see what's going on up at Dougie's place. Probably lots of beer there.
If he lived in Wainfleet, the fines imposed by the STR bylaw would likely amount to tens of millions of dollars, and our Premier could face the seizure of his home, just as we do now. Under the provisions of this bylaw, I estimate that after 1 year, the city will have fined us nearly $50 million. In March 2024, I received a notice from the city informing us that the new STR bylaw would take effect on April 4th. At that time, we were planning to move into our lake house in May 2024, but we had already booked a few rentals before the bylaw was announced.
All right, so he was planning to move into his lake house. They don't currently live in the lake house. So it seems like he might have bought this with the plan in place to rent it to help offset the mortgage or the payments, whatever the case may be. Now, this place is a $2 million lake house also. So this guy's, he's not short of cash. Now, I'm not going to take a side here. I think that both the town is being outrageous in their fines, and of course, he's not innocent either. He had a plan moving forward, and anyone knows these days, short-term rentals, Airbnbs, they're a risky bet because things are changing, bylaws are changing all the time, so you have to be prepared for the worst, and obviously this guy got the worst here, but let's keep listening.
In good faith, we're an honest family. I contacted the city to explain our situation and to see if we could reach an agreement regarding these pre-booked rentals. However, instead of a reasonable response, the city informed us that we admitted guilt and immediately began issuing us fines. So the initial fine for short-term rental bylaw is $10,000 per owner per dwelling per day. For each subsequent infraction, the fine increases by $5,000. My wife and I are both on the title of the property, and we own 2 homes on our lakefront property. So based on the bylaw, the first fine should have been $40,000, yet we were only fined $20,000. The subsequent fines were $15,000, $20,000, $25,000, $30,000 per owner, per dwelling, per day. So far we've received around $100,000 in actual fines that they've mailed us, but they come with a letter stating that these penalties are issued daily.
Damn, this guy's got $100,000 in fines for an Airbnb or a short-term rental, which is crazy. I'm going to skip ahead now to a little bit further near the end of the video just to show you the counselors and what he's planning to do, which is pretty insane also.
My wife and I, both born and raised in Canada, met in high school. We built our lives together. We worked tirelessly to buy this lakefront home, a place we dreamed of retiring in. Now that dream is under threat by Mayor Brian Grant and councillors John McClellan, Joan Anderson, Terry Gilmore, and Sherry Van Fleet.
Wow, look at these guys. It looks like the Addams family mixed with the mob boss or like some funeral directors here. They're all wearing black. I don't know, buddy. I don't think your chances are too good here. These guys seem like they have the place locked down over there.
What kind of leadership would do this? What kind of people would take away a family's home? I keep asking myself, What country is this happening in? Because it doesn't feel like the Canada we know. And it's not just us. Hundreds of families across Wainfleet have been devastated by the unlawful actions of this mayor and these rogue councillors. But it's time we fight back. Earlier this year, the Ontario government removed the mayor and councillors of Black River, Matheson, a small town in northern Ontario. Through our legal efforts, PR campaigns, and complaints to the ombudsmans, we aim to have the mayor and councillors of Wainfleet removed from office, paving the way for an emergency by-election.
Wow, damn. This guy's looking to literally overthrow the government of Wainfleet. This guy's got ambition. All right, so the link to this video is in the description. As I said before, I'm not taking anyone's side. I think both people are at fault. This is a battle of the willed here. And yeah, he bought into a township, a small township, knowing that short-term rentals were frowned upon in a lot of places in Canada and that this could happen. Of course, not to this degree, but at least he's fighting back. And I think the township has been pretty rogue in their fines also. All right, moving on to the next news article from the Globe and Mail. And of course, our good friend Phil Soper is in it from Royal LePage, pumping the market and saying what he has to say. And I just want to read a few lines from this. Canada's sluggish housing market could be recovering. Here's why. Activity in Canada's housing market remains sluggish, but a rebound may have already begun thanks to 3 consecutive interest rate cuts, a new report by Royal LePage suggests. Of course, Royal LePage, it's rebounding, everything's great, but go buy some more houses now. According to the Royal LePage House Price Survey released Thursday, the aggregate price of a home in Canada compared with this time last year increased 1.6% to $815,500 in the third quarter of 2024. 815, that's what the price was at the peak for the national price, but they have their own price index, I guess, here, as you'll see moving down. So remember that number, $815,000. Royal LePage forecasts that further interest rate cuts could mean an early spring housing market boost in Canada. Oh yeah, the early spring housing boost. We always love that. And then it goes on about the usual propaganda, interest rates, buyers, activity, all the rest of that. Of course, the 30-year amortizations, the $1 million and $1.5 to $1.5 million CMHC cap on insured mortgages. Now the tone changes because they're using actual national statistics, not from Royal LePage. Compared with this time last quarter, however, the national aggregate home price decreased 1.1% following sluggish activity in most, though not all, markets throughout the summer months. Of course, we always see summer declines. Despite 3 cuts to the Bank of Canada's overnight lending rate, buyer demand nationally remains weak, particularly among 2 key groups, first-time homebuyers and small investors, said Phil Soper, President and Chief Executive Officer at Royal LePage. First-time buyers who are more sensitive to interest rates are adopting a wait-and-see attitude, with home prices essentially flat and interest rates steadily declining. They perceive no penalty in postponing their purchase. Who is this guy, Phil Soper? Is he even a realtor? Let's check him out here. Name, let's do a name search here for him. Soper. Here we go. Andrea, Keith, Steve. We got no Phil. Phil's not even a realtor. What's he doing talking about real estate like this? And of course, near the end, it does talk about inflation. Good news for Canadians came in the form of falling inflation, with consumer price inflation reaching 2.1% year over year in the third quarter, which is now 1.6% today. Now, people say that's below the 2% target, but the 2% target is from 1 to 3%, not 2%, so, or the target, I should say. So, yeah, we're down to 1.6%, but that still means prices are up 1.6%. And the biggest part of that is the shelter inflation, which is still up 5% from last September. So again, we're seeing that sticking around with shelter inflation, of course, renting and mortgage costs. And here's another article from Global News trying to create some FOMO in the market here. Motivated buyers could spur uptick in Toronto area real estate, agents say. And here we go. The real estate market across much of Greater Toronto area and beyond continues to remain soft as interest rates remain high. But we could soon see things sell at a brisker pace next spring. So admitting the market's slow, but you better not wait too long. The FOMO, they're going to try to create that FOMO again, especially when spring comes. It'll happen. It has been speculated that the federal bank is expected to drop the Bank of Canada rate in the coming months by 0.5 point, but Hamilton realtor Rob Golfey believes it will be too late to boost the fall market. Wow, even Rob Golfy's even admitting defeat here. This is pretty crazy. They should have done it early, like the first week of October, and it would have really made the fall market stronger than it is. All right, so I think they missed a little editing in that sentence, and there was no rate hike in the beginning of October, so you couldn't have decreased it further in the beginning like he stated. He explained, noting that he was concerned that sluggish fall sales will lead to an overheated spring market. All right, sluggish sales, hot spring market. Sluggish sales, prices go up, guys. We've turned it into a positive thing here. Anyway, they go on to talk about certain areas and whatnot. I'm not going to get into the article. The link is in the description, but let's get into some national stats that were just released today. All right, starting off with the national average sale price in Canada, and we did see that seasonal uptick in September, just over $669,000. That's a 3.2% month-over-month increase, or $20,000. 2.1% increase year-over-year, or $14,000, and a 17.9% from the peak. That was that $815,000 peak, the real peak, not as in the Royal LePage Index. That's $815,000 right now, or $146,000 from the peak. Prices have dropped. Now I'm going to add back in these pennants here. Of course, there's two pennants. I've talked about this on the last video before I had the September's numbers in there. You can see, of course, that little uptick up to the 669. We are staying within that triangle at the end of the pennant. Of course, which way do you think it's going to break? We are in a bearish pennant with the first flagpole coming from the top, meaning it's going to break to the downside most likely. Again, these are indicators based on probabilities of the patterns. We're coming from a high to a low. It's going to continue to break low most likely based on this pattern. Number of sales. September actually did pretty good with the number of sales. You can see year over year, they had more sales in 2022 and 2023. It's still just below the average point, but I think the average is about 42,000. But yeah, it's not looking bad for sales, but this is where things end. The good news ends. Months of inventory or months of supply. We were at 4.1 months in September. August was also 4.1, but they did readjust that to 4.2 in their latest statistical release. Of course, they do get adjusted after sometimes with other boards re-reporting their numbers or fixing their numbers because of late sales figures and late inventory figures. But looking at this chart here, you can see we have been over 4 months now for 6 months in a row, which is a big precedent here. No other time after 2020 has been like that. So this is a great benchmark. It's almost like we're seeing some resistance or some support here, I should say, with inventory, and we're sitting at the 4 months. I do expect it to drop down at some point, but we'll see. I also expect it to rise up to that 4.5 to 5 months at some point, which will really change the price points in Canada. Again, if you've watched my previous videos, I'm looking for that 4.5 months of inventory to start to see some more downward pressure on prices. Just looking at the September months of supply, and we see this with all the other months, we are seeing those year-over-year increases. We are at the highest months of supply since 2019, a lot higher than the other years, or sorry, should I say 2020 and 2021, higher than the last 2 years. So again, we are seeing this inventory consistently rise. Let's hope we continue to see that pattern because it will give a lot more purchasing power and price adjustments to those buyers looking to get into the market. Now looking at the sales to new listings ratio, it's currently sitting at 51.3% for September this year. This is the lowest sales to new listings ratio for the entire year, and you have to go back to last year to the winter months to see something as low. So again, this is good news. This is actually a perfectly balanced market right now. It would be nice for the buyer's sake and for price forgiveness to get back down to closer to a buyer's market. Again, looking at the history here, it's nationally, it's pretty hard to get below the 40%, but even at 45%, the buyers will have a lot more choices and a lot more purchasing power. Now moving on to the average monthly mortgage payment. This is like an affordability, more like a payment affordability, not a house affordability, because house affordability comes from pricing, not from a mortgage payment like the government would like you to believe by stretching those payments out to 30 years. But regardless, it's at $32.73 a month for the average house right now. It was dropping down, but of course it creeped back up with those higher prices in September. And I've compared this now with the average rent payment payment. So the average rent, according to rentals.ca, was $21.87, a lot lower than that average monthly mortgage payment. And of course, with the rent, you don't have the property taxes, the repairs, and the insurance. You have some insurance, but it's usually a lot cheaper. So we are still seeing that huge separation from renting to owning in Canada. Like to see that gap close. I'm sure it will. Rent may continue to increase, although it looks like it's flatlined for now. But and there's a lot of reports actually from certain areas where they're having those price decreases, small decreases at that. But we are seeing prices decrease in the rent, and of course, purchase prices will hopefully come down along with the interest rates, and we'll see that gap close. Okay, so that's it for this week. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments, what do you think of my new format? Do you like the scrolling of the ticker across the bottom with the prices and whatnot? I figured I'd step it up a notch. But until next week, I'll see you then.